So I wanted to get into single focus versus kind of, I forget how you label it, but like like diffused focus or scattered
Diffuse
focused,
awareness.
diffused awareness.
There's no focus.
So my husband has ADD and then he's also a man, so it's kind of like a double whammy when it comes to like his direction, his single focus, his determinism. For a long time, I would just get enraged, and again, anger doesn't work, right? It's the
Right.
quickest way for him to disconnect and actually go more inward, and then I feel more ignored, and then this cycle perpetuates. And then when I got done with your book and I understood that we just literally we see things differently, like the whole sock on the floor and it's screaming at me and he just steps over it, I would take it as a personal insult, but
Right.
he's already doing something else and that has nothing to do with his mission. And then add the ADD, it's this whole other thing. Or if he's on his phone and I come in and I interrupt him and I expect he drop the phone and immediately engage with me, and that would be a thing. And then after this book, I'm like, it all makes so much sense. Like I can choose to wait till he's done with his task and then approach it when he's available, and then I have his full undivided attention. But if I go in when he's already in the middle of something, well, he's already committed to that thing.
Yeah.
And he's committed and he's determined and he's not going to like stray that focus for me. I'm now the interruption. And then that's just an easy way to get rid of what is like a normal friction point within the relationship. So there's like all these little tools that you can have, and understanding that the male brain just it functions differently. And in hindsight, like duh. I'm this whole time I've been mad at my husband for not being a perfect woman. Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, and if he really loved you, he'd try harder to act like a perfect woman, wouldn't he?
Right.
Well, if so, do you want me to unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so couple ways to think about it that aren't in the Queen's Code, because I've kept studying and kept developing and kept changing the way I articulate things so that people who didn't relate to the previous way, maybe they can relate to this. So one thing is if you think of it as a spectrum, right?
Mhm.
And and on one end of the spectrum is we would call single focus, and you could call it absolute single focus if you wanted to, or extreme single focus is called autism. And I read an article about a woman who specializes in getting jobs for autistic people, and what the challenges are, what they need in a job. And she advocated that every TSA scanner, luggage scanner, should be operated by someone with autism, because they're never going to break their focus. They're never going to miss anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we have extreme focus on one end, and then we have extreme diffuse awareness on the other end. And that is estrogen causes that in the brain. And if you think about it, it's as necessary for survival. The ability for a hunter to track something down and kill it and drag it home no matter what, and the ability of a gatherer to go into a meadow and be able to just scan, just not have to look at each and everything. Like my son explained, he said, "Mom, my finder's broken." I said, "What do you mean?" Because I can't find things the way you do. I said, "Well, how do you go
Oh.
about finding things?" And he goes, "Well, like if I think it's in my room, first I look on the bed, and then I look on the floor, and then I look on the shelf." And not on the bed, not on that part of the floor, not on that part of the right, not on the shelf, right? Where diffuse awareness, we would just go like, we just
Mhm.
scan, it's not here, right? Or it would
Mhm.
pop out. Well, that's perfect for a meadow when you've got to be able to efficiently identify edible, medicinal, poisonous, useful. I could make something out of that, right? You got to be
Mhm.
able to do that very quickly, or you waste a lot of time and energy, right?
Mm.
Just as if you're out hunting deer and you get distracted by a rabbit. Don't get distracted by a rabbit. Stay on the deer.
Mhm.
so, so you can think of it like that, like hunting and gathering. You can think of it focused and no focus, which creates this whole other awareness and ability to stay connected, for example, and the way that we're so empathic and we don't really own it. Like we'll pick up on the mental, physical, emotional, energetic states of anybody in our environment. And sometimes they don't even have to be in our environment, right?
Mhm.
So you can think about it hunting and gathering. You can also think about it, and I speak about it this way because so many women are in hunting mode for
Mhm.
so much of their time for all kinds of good reasons. I think of it as a committed state of mind versus an open state of mind. So what's interesting is when men are a committed, get her done kind of state of mind, it causes us to admire them, to be sexually attracted to them, to like these strengths, right? Like men at work, it's hot, right?
Mhm.
But a man in an open state of mind is when we're going to fall in love with them. It's
Oh, wow.
it's when his lack of a result to produce has him be available to connect, has him be
Mm.
available to see us, right? And we need to be seen. And even,
Wow.
yeah, and even to share things about himself that he would never tell fellow hunters, right?
Mhm.
Like that it might lose
Mhm.
respect, right? Where instead, in this way, it's creating connection and affinity. So I would imagine in you describing your husband that he can go to both places, right?
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and what's tricky is being able to tell how is he now.
Mhm.
And my boyfriend Dan is similar to how you were describing your husband, but not like ADD. He doesn't even know how many concussions he had by the time he was 20 years old, playing hockey
Wow.
since he was 4, right? And he
Mhm.
had to like he pays so much attention to making his brain work, and to like he wanted to be better at remembering things. He's better than normal people. He works. I said, "Do you know you overshot that?" but what'll happen is that he'll like he I'm saying, how's your day going, right? And he'll say, "Oh, I saw Susie so and so at the hardware store." And then it's like in his brain a file opens up. Susie grew up in Connecticut, and then she married Dan, who was from Florida, and then and it'll be the entire file. And if I interrupt the entire file, he gets thrown on that. So I have to be really gentle about, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'd love to know more about Susie and her entire family and where all her children went to college later, because he knows all of this. And he'll apologize if he doesn't remember where your kid went to college. I mean, it's stunning.
Wow.
But yeah, but he'll get hooked by something, right?
Mhm.
And then he's open and connected to me, and now he's focused on this. So I just had to learn to wait and be interested and curious. He loves that I'll listen to this. Or I'm sorry, I can't hear that part right now. I need the answer to this question because it's happening in 60 seconds. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Or yeah, I'll do that. I can't, right? So I love that you represent that because there's so much to learn, and then there's training ourselves to be able to tell. And it's the same thing for men. Like we have an Understanding Women course on Audible that was produced in 2008. We have an Understanding Women course online as part of our online curriculum that came from revamping the whole course in 2013 because the previous one just represented women in gathering mode,
Mm.
which meant that what I was teaching only works part of the time. And the Understanding Women online talks about, right, if she's hunting, this is what support is like for her. If she's gathering, support's completely different, right?
Mm.
And this is how she uses language if she's in a hunting state of mind. This is how she'll use language in a gathering state of mind. This is how to support her in having enough sex If she's hunting, do this. If she's gathering, do this. And then ultimately, this is how you can tell which mode she's in. If
Mm.
she
Oh
walks,
my
yeah, like you can tell by how a woman is walking. If she's
Oh,
walking,
wow.
yeah, if she's walking on a straight line, right, and all her energy is going forward, she's
Mhm.
hunting something. She's in a committed state of mind. She's getting somewhere. Get out of the way or get behind her, but don't step into that, right? Whereas if she's in an open diffuse awareness state of mind, the first thing that'll show up is her hips will start to move. Her body and like la da 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 da. It's inefficient.
Mhm.
We literally move in a way that's inefficient. And, oh, pick this up, grab one of those. Oh, I should put that back in the bed. Like, and we'll go out of our way, we'll meander, right? And we'll end up over
Mhm.
here and over there. And, or if you walk into a room and she doesn't look up, she's focused. Don't, if you're going to interrupt her, apologize. I'm sorry to interrupt. If she looks up and says, "Where's the milk?" She's focused. If she looks up and goes, "Oh, hi, honey," she's in a diffused state of mind, right? She's in an open
Mhm.
state of mind. So there's all these signs. We have to learn all these signs for the mental state. Or
Mhm.
we can get really good on the other side of it of just saying so, just telling. I'm going to
Mhm.
be focused for the next 4 hours. Is there anything you need before I go under? Because I
Mhm.
won't be available to support you. And I'm sorry for that, honey. But I,
Yeah, my husband does that, he's really good at that. So
oh,
he will
yay.
block out time where he's dedicated to the office or phone calls or whatever project he's working on. He's like, "From this time to this time, I'm unavailable," basically, unless it's an emergency. That way I can't be texting him and think he's ignoring me, or it just creates a lot more clarity within the relationship, which is huge.